The following program is sponsored by Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital.
Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital is Louisiana's fastest growing children's hospital and a beacon of hope and healing for families across Louisiana and beyond. With a medical staff that includes some of the top specialists in the country, working around the clock to provide advanced health care specifically for children. A robust network of specialized pediatric specialist clinics that span our entire state, and a vision to revolutionize Louisiana healthcare for children. Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital is doing amazing things for kids. Now, a behind-the-scenes look into the lives of young patients and the highly specialized care that's changing their lives. Meet Jack, Fletcher, Parker, and Devin. This is Louisiana Med.
Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital treats patients from all across Louisiana. We even treat kids from areas in Texas and Mississippi. We see over 90,000 patients each year through our emergency room as well as in the hospital. A lot of our kids are so complex. They have very chronic, complex illnesses and they require immediate attention.
When Jack was born, he was a healthy baby who was 2 weeks early, but he kept losing weight, and I kept trying to feed him. It finally got to the point he was just throwing up everything he ate and gasping to breathe, and we called his ENT, in which he talked to our pediatrician, and I called him about 8 that morning. By 4 p.m., we were in an ambulance heading to Our Lady of the Lake for the surgery. I wasn't able to prepare for the procedure, and I kind of just went through the motions and I knew it's what we had to do to get him where he needed to be to keep him alive and keep him healthy.
Jack had PRO band sequence resulting in small jaw, a cleft palate, and a tongue that was falling into his airway, so he was having trouble both breathing and eating well. The first step that we did with Jack was he was born in Lafayette. A pediatric ENT in Lafayette noted that he was having problems, noted that he had the small jaw, the cleft palate, and the tongue blocking his airway, transferred him to us, and we proceeded with a mandibular distraction, which is essentially making his jaw larger to accommodate his tongue so it can fall down into the airway. The position of the mandible actually helps support the larynx better, which is what helps them to swallow better. So what we used to do on these kids is they would get tracheostomies, so they have a breathing tube in their neck. And now that we perform mandibular distraction, making the jaw larger and moving it forward, advancing it forward, is they now can avoid a tracheostomy and they can go home without feeding tubes and without a breathing tube in their neck. Jaw distraction is scary because whenever you're going into it, you're explaining to them, we may not be able to get his airway. He may end up still coming out with a tracheostomy tube. Our goal is to get him through this without a tracheostomy tube, but he doesn't have a safe airway. It is a very stressful thing, and then you don't know if the jaw distraction is going to be enough to help him breathe just fine. And luckily for Jack, all it took was a couple millimeters of advancement and he was already feeding and breathing better.
The jaw distraction lasted about 2 weeks where he would come in. He had 2 rods right here. We called them his little antennas. And they would come in and take a screwdriver and turn his rods. It went from twice a day to once a day until he felt that his jaw had grew out enough to be able to live and eat and breathe on his own.
At Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, we have many pediatric specialists such as pediatric gastroenterologists, pediatric pulmonologists, pediatric endocrinologists, pediatric surgery, many different specialists that are working together to take care of these complex children.
See, I'm doing what I would be doing.
I just know there's nothing else I can do.
Fletcher and Parker are brothers who came to Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital as teenagers with chest wall deformities. About 3 years ago, I completed a pectus excavatum procedure on Fletcher, where we put bars in to help reform his chest. Today, we're going to remove the bars. How you guys doing?
I'm good.
We're good.
Y'all ready for today?
Yep.
You have any questions before surgery?
Nope.
Anything we haven't answered yet?
No.
Okay. I'll find you when we get done, and it won't be long now. Okay?
All right,
guys.
thank
Very
you.
good. Yeah.
Today we're having his bars removed. After this, we'll watch it to make sure that he doesn't regress at all and that the chest stays out the way it's supposed to.
Fletcher had what's called pectus excavatum, and the pectus excavatum is a inward deflection of the sternum or breastbone. And so as your bony ribs come out from your back and then it becomes cartilages that join with your sternum, if those bones and cartilages grow out of proportion, it can either deflect your sternum in or push your sternum out. And those are the same functional process that creates those problems. It's just vastly different in appearance if you have a pigeon breast or an outward sternum or an inverted or caved in chest or the excavatum. And so Fletcher had the excavatum, the caved in part.
Fletcher had 2 titanium bars put in his chest. They're called pectus bars, and he had to have them for 3 years. And as of this month, it's been 3 years, so it's time for those to come out. We did notice Fletcher's from an early age. We could tell it too because his father had it, so we could tell it too that he was going to have some issues, and we followed it just to see how severe his was going to be, because sometimes it's not as severe. He had other relatives that had it that never had the surgery because it wasn't as noticeable.
In this particular instance, we disrupt all the ligaments immediately up front, and then we wait the period of time for them to reform in the position that we want to reform in, using the bar as a support or brace for the ligaments to attach in that position. And then they stay in for 3 years in general, okay? And we like, and it used to be 2 years, we've kind of extended that out because we saw decreased recurrences with this. And we liken this process to braces, essentially. You know, you put braces on for 2 to 3 years, and you gradually, with braces, move them back in, and all the ligaments, and they reform in the positions you want them to form into. And then we take the bars out, and the chest stays in that position.
Coming up, learn more about Fletcher and his brother Parker and the results of their surgeries. Plus,
The next step for Jack is the palatal repair.
Jack is now old enough to undergo another surgery to repair his cleft palate. Keep watching Louisiana Med.
Ever think someone half your age could teach you how to be twice as smart? Can someone born of you sometimes seem to come from another place? Kids are amazing, which is why at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, we're doing amazing things for them. From covering 20 specialties, including critical care, to actually carrying kids to the OR. Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, the relentless pursuit of better.
Parker is Fletcher's brother. He also had a chest wall deformity, but his chest was sticking out like a fin. In contrast to Fletcher's chest that caved in, Parker's chest went out. And so, you know, no arch bar is going to fix an already peaked sternum. So to fix that problem, we have to actually make an incision in the chest. We usually make it between your breasts, go down to the chest wall itself, and then we actually physically excise the cartilage around the sternum. And the sternum can actually still be sitting up. You have to excise the cartilage, and so you often have to make an incision in the sternum, break it down to the position that you want it to be into. If it's loose, you have to put a metal strut across to hold it in place, and then you secure the, it's called the perichondrium, which is basically the surroundings of the cartilage. We save those, and we connect those back up and put them into the sternum, so the cartilages grow back into the position we want them to grow into.
We were afraid that if we didn't do the surgery, even if we decided for cosmetic reasons he didn't need it, if we didn't do it and it got worse, he'd be past the age that it would be best to do that kind of correction.
Not all kids come in because they're having some physiologic change. And a lot of them come in because they're having self-esteem or body image problems. And in adolescence, you cannot underestimate the long-term effects of having a negative body image in that time period.
Before I had the surgery, it was, I don't know, it's just kind of awkward having to take your shirt off and, like, you know, people looking at it and wondering what it is. You just kind of had to explain it to them. It was kind of weird.
Before surgery, I always wore baggy shirts to school so my friends couldn't notice. But usually when my shirts got too small, people started to notice. When I started losing weight, it became way more noticeable than it usually was.
So when you don't want to take your shirt off and go swimming, you avoid pool parties, you avoid socializing with your friends, you don't want to play shirts and skins, so it affects your exercise, it affects your participation in PE, it affects so many aspects of your life that you may not really recognize as being affected, that it's just for the total package of the child, it plays a major impact in their life to have a chest that is not like their friends or anyone else's.
It was definitely something that affected them mentally as well. You know, being around other kids, Fletcher would always wear a shirt when he went swimming. Parker was uncomfortable sometimes, people asking him, why is your chest like that? So it made me feel good that they could have that corrected and know that long term there would be no other problems physically.
The next step for Jack is the palatal repair. The average cleft child with a cleft lip and a cleft palate is going to have about 7 or 8 surgeries in their lifetime. Some will even say more.
Today he's having the palate repair. They're gonna close his cleft palate. We'll have like a 3-week recovery, and he'll wear no-nos on his arms, and he won't be able to put anything in his mouth, but be okay. No thumb sucking. This one's hard because he's older and he's my baby and he's taken away from me, but I know it has to be done.
I remember how emotional Sadie was when we took him away. She's had so many more months to love on him and love him as her son, and so we're asking mothers to trust us with their children, and then we're asking families to believe in us and to believe in our skill.
Cleft palate repair, we went in, he had, I think it was a 4-hour surgery, got in, the surgery went well. She said it was a little difficult because he had a high arch palate.
He had the bony portion of his palate where the cleft was very arched, so that makes it a little more difficult, but I think he'll do well.
Jack is now 22 months. He is all boy. He loves a tractor. He can point out any John Deere tractor. He loves cars, a ball, a baseball. Elmo is his sidekick. He has started talking so much. We're just so happy with the progress because I didn't feel like he would be saying as much as he is. Since he's doing really well at this point, we don't have to go back until a year, and then we'll do some speech assessments, and then we'll determine if he has a nasally voice. If he does, then maybe that would require another palate surgery.
A certain percentage of cleft palate patients don't need speech surgery. I would love it if the only thing he needed for the rest of his life was braces, and that our role was pretty much obsolete other than watching him grow up. That's what I want for him. I'm hoping that his palate functions well, has the length it needs, and he doesn't need any speech surgery. I'm hoping that Braces will be good enough to get his palate in the position that it needs to be, and he doesn't need any orthognathic surgery in the future. Once you get to the point where you can fix any speech deficits or any palatal lengthening procedures to affect or help their speech, you do that as soon as possible so they can grow up feeling like a normal kid.
We're very blessed in how he's handling everything. He's really happy at home, and he's made do with what God gave him for now, and he has no idea that he'll be a lot more comfortable after all this. He's a little fighter.
Coming up, one specialist has a big goal for Devin.
My wish for Devin is to eventually pull that trach out.
Learn more about Devin and how doctors hope to help him live as normally as possible. Plus, the future of children's healthcare in Louisiana.
The right doctors all in the same area. If I'm a parent making a decision for my child, that's where I want him to be.
You're watching Louisiana Med.
Ever find yourself following in the footsteps of someone whose feet are half your size? Can eyes that look the same as yours make you see things differently? Kids are amazing, which is why at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, we're doing amazing things for them. From being able to treat the most critical pediatric conditions to offering patients pet therapy during their stay. Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, the relentless pursuit of better.
Devin is a sweet little 9-year-old boy who has Down syndrome and who I've been following now for a couple of years because unfortunately his upper airway tends to collapse. He has severe sleep apnea, and in order to bypass that obstruction, he has a tracheostomy in place, which is an artificial airway placed in his neck.
Devin was about right around a year when he started having problems with breathing. He wasn't gaining weight, and they determined that he was failing to thrive. So they put him in the hospital to see what was going on. It turned out when they done a sleep study, it was his breathing. Found out he had a collapsing airway, and that's how he ended up with a trach.
Without a tracheostomy, his airway would frequently collapse, especially when he's asleep. And when that happens, his oxygen levels drop while he's asleep. And that over a prolonged period of time can affect your heart, not to mention your brain. And so by avoiding those frequent dips in his oxygen levels while he sleeps, you keep him healthy. He's doing all the breathing on his own. He doesn't need any help from any machines to breathe. He's not even on oxygen. So all we need to do is provide some humidity, because the tracheostomy being a plastic device does not provide the humidification and heated effects that cause when you breathe through your nose. So that's all he does is breathe with this little, it's called a tracheostomy collar, provide some humid and heated air, and he breathes on his own. Most of the time when I see him, he's stable, and we just make sure that he has all his tracheostomy supplies, that mom is cleaning the tracheostomy appropriately, they're doing the tracheostomy changes on a regular basis, and that they're having no significant problems from a breathing standpoint since the last visit. We hope eventually, as he grows, that his airway will get bigger and stronger, and one day, hopefully, we can take that tracheostomy out and he can go back to living a normal life.
We still can't get the trach out just quite yet. His airway is still collapsing. We tried, but it didn't work out. Just seeing this little person going through all of this, and he wasn't a child that complained a lot. He didn't cry a lot. I think I did more crying for him than what he actually did. Having a tracheostomy in your neck is definitely out of the norm, but we try to make it as simple as possible for him. Thankfully, he's been pretty stable. He has great support from his family, so they take very good care of him, and he stays out of the hospital. He can do pretty much everything. And the only thing that he cannot do is go diving or go underwater, because he has that airway, artificial airway in place. But he should be able to run and play and do like a normal life. He can ride his bicycle if he can. He can play basketball, whatever he wants to do. Well, Devin is a little character. He really enjoys playing with the kids at school. And here is wrestling. Wrestling, wrestling, wrestling. If it come on every day of the week, he'll watch it every day of the week. He loves it. He's a character. He loves Jay. Jay is his older brother, and that's his favorite.
We like to play wrestling, watch TV, and play on the iPad.
My wish for Devin is to eventually pull that trach out. Even though he can do most of the stuff that other kids can do, it's always nicer to do without.
My main goal for Devin is to make sure he can be as independent as possible.
That he'll be mature enough to take care of himself and do something with his life.
We try to work with him like we would do any other child. And we try not to, handicap him in any way. So, but my main thing is to get his communication up a little bit more, even though we understand, what he's saying and everything, but we still want it to be just a little bit more where others can really understand him. But our main goal is for him to be independent.
Healthcare for children is really more than just doctors treating illnesses. It's looking at children holistically. It's collaborative work by nurses, child life, therapists, physicians, really treating the child's physical illnesses as well as psychological illnesses. When the medical team can come together to help that and help the kids through that process, that's one of the amazing things that we're able to do.
Okay, so we may be ready for the formals then. Okay.
You said already.
Hi guys.
It's gotta be fun.
The boys are here in clinic for a checkup to make sure everything is healing properly. With this checkup, I can see that Fletcher and Parker look and feel great and are both ready to return to normal activity.
I would say that they were both within 6 weeks back to complete normal activity. The doctor kind of puts them on, a limited physical activity for 6 weeks, but after that, they were back to normal. Yeah.
After my surgery, because when we moved, we bought a house with a pool. I was able to go swimming again. Before, I always had a lack of breath, and I couldn't run as much as I can now. I have more energy than I did before the surgery, so I'm now able to go farther and longer without taking a break to catch my breath, and I'm having a lot more fun with my friends without doing that.
They both like to play football. They both played football for a very long time. They're very active, so I did want them to be confident when they're around all their friends because that has something to do with their confidence level as well. I think they've both kind of told me they're glad they did it, because I've asked them, are you glad that we went through it with you? And they've both said yes, particularly Parker, who was, like I said, a little more physically visible. He definitely has told me just out of the blue on his own, he said, Mom, I look normal now. And I think that kind of chokes me up a little bit, so.
Children are special. They are our future. And if the future is going to be bright, then our care of children needs to be right.
The vision or the dream of a children's hospital has been in existence for a long time. Ever since Sister Julie, one of the sisters, walked the halls of Our Lady of the Lake taking care of pediatric patients, it's been a vision that one day we might have a home or a house that's strictly just for kids. Well, that day has come.
Today's a really exciting day. We broke ground on our new freestanding children's hospital, February 18th, 2016. It's an amazing day in our history. The new freestanding hospital will include a state-of-the-art emergency room. It'll have a surgical suite with many state-of-the-art equipped operating rooms. It's going to be a total of 6 stories. We'll have a HEMONC unit that is very innovative because it includes both inpatient as well as clinic patients all collated on that same floor. floor. We are an affiliate of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. There are 7 affiliates in the country, and we're presently the largest affiliate associated with St. Jude. So we're able to bring that St. Jude protocol, treatment, science, and research here in Baton Rouge to treat the children of our community. The hospital will include a med-surg unit, and that takes care of the typical child with like pneumonia or asthma, dehydration. And we have a very big PICU or pediatric intensive care unit to take care of our most critically fragile children. We'll also have a medical office building that really connects on 2 of the floors. So we'll have a 4-story medical office building to house our pediatric specialists that really allows them to be so accessible to the hospital quickly to be able to respond to children's needs.
It is a tremendous investment, an investment not only in the present, but an investment in the future of children's care.
This is a must for really fixing and giving a fair start to the youth of Louisiana.
When you look at Baton Rouge growing into a world-class city, we need world-class children's health care. And this new facility, this new freestanding, state-of-the-art, outstanding facility for children's care is just going to take us to a new level as a city.
Everything that the children need, their needs will be met.
Louisiana Children's Hospital has a special responsibility to take care of a child and to promote that good health, not only when they present to the hospital sick, but through our pediatricians, through our specialists, to create healthy habits, healthy lifestyles, and make sure that these children are taught how to be healthy, because if you don't have a healthy child, you're not going to have a healthy adult.
When your youth is being served and they start fast, their futures are bright.
As a parent, I think it's so important and wonderful to have such a great place like Our Lady of Lake Children's Hospital right here in our community. You know, if one of your children is ever in need, it's close by, it's right here, and you don't have to travel and put that stress on the rest of your family as well.
Convenience and a bright environment and the right doctors all in the same area. Just, if I'm a parent making a decision for my child, you know, that's where I want him to be, or her.